So I actually sold my car so I can create time in my day where on the train where I can just sit and type. Just fell into place, you know. God like put it all in place. The video editing from when I was like a kid, the motivational speaking, the ability to explain complicated things in simple ways, access to an airport, understanding the engineering, all just kicked together into 45 little second videos about how things work at the airport. TikTok blew up first, like TikTok went completely viral first. Instagram quickly followed afterwards. And then this community emerged of people who just wanted to learn about the airport. Literally, it's a bit of plastic. I picked it up and I put it in the bin. And I recorded myself do that. That video got 8.9 million views. I was so scared. I still remember I was holding onto the radiator and my knees were shaking so violently that I had to hold on with two hands just to try and calm. You can hear it in my voice, like when I was saying massive security breach at the airport, wrote a fat email, and there was a link. And where did that link take them? To my TikTok page, where within a 2-week period I probably received more hate than I've ever received in my entire life, concentrated within probably a 48-hour period, or even a
Welcome everyone to the Flying High Club podcast. Thank you for all of your responses. And today I have a fantastic guest. He's a star. He's a TikTok star and he's taken the internet by storm. Many of you would have seen his content. He's been all over the place behind the scenes, exposing what goes on in the world of the airport. He's amassed over 450,000 followers online, millions of views, and a fanfare behind him, and a great community of aspiring young engineers and airline talent. He's working with some of the greatest brands that we know, and he's inspiring the next generation of aviators across the world. His reach is global, and he is one of the most humblest people I've ever met, and through conversation. I'd like to welcome Mohammed Tahir, or Moti, or even Motivate, everyone.
Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, man. Absolute pleasure.
And Mo, this has been a long time coming. I mean, I met you. It's coming up to a year ago now, and it was in an office celebrating Black History Month. I don't know if you remember, and it was just a quick run-in of saying, "Hey, I fanboyed. I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh, I've seen him TikTok. Hey Mo, how you doing?" And now here we are, sitting face to face. And here's a secret story that we didn't talk about before. You asked, why did I kind of start this? Where what was the thinking behind it, and the sort of structure. And I kind of looked at your content. I'd be like, damn, I could do that.
You could.
I could do that. And exactly, this is it. So I don't want to big you up too much and say you were my inspiration, but you're definitely an element that sort of gave me the push over the edge. And I think it was some
action, man. You took the action. That's all that matters.
And that's one thing. And hopefully that message will resonate to the people listening, and we go from there. But it just takes that one spark to push you over the edge, because I think it was just one line that I didn't realize that a lot of the work that you did yourself, and via, we'll cover this, but your own device.
Yeah.
And it was that of, why am I aiming for perfection? Let me go with the interim and then go from there. So, yeah, that's the best introduction I could give. So thank you for that motivation. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's been a long day for you. But yeah, I mean, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our listeners and the world. I think many of them will see your short form content, but I want to ask you, tell us a bit more about yourself, where you're from, and especially, coming up from your childhood, and how did you get into the travel space?
Wow. So first of all, thank you. I'm absolutely humbled by that introduction, and I'm so glad that maybe just one thing I done maybe sparked that thing in you that means that we're here. And I love seeing people take action. So thank you for taking action. My name is Mohammed Tahir, is like the way you pronounce it in Arabic. But everyone called me Mohammed Tahir or Moti or the airport guy. You take a pick, whatever you want.
Got to be a great name, the airport guy.
The airport guy. I was at an airport exhibition last week, and when I introduced myself, like I have it on my badge, it said the airport guy. People look at it like, what? You're the airport guy? And I'm like, here's my card, take a look. And yeah, the rest was history from that moment. But yeah, so I born and raised in northwest London, so always sort of around the airport, Heathrow Airport specifically, of all of them. Um, my heritage, my background is Iraqi. That's where my parents came from. And funny story, 1990, my parents actually arrived to the UK at Heathrow Airport. So it really did go full circle for me to be back at the airport. I know you have a quite a family sort of history in the aviation space.
Yeah.
I feel like we all do when we sort of live in that
It's a
West
funny
London.
space, honestly. I've met so many people and people previously the podcast. It's a lot of where I've met a lot of family friends growing up, and that was it. There were the airport guys, as if they adopt that name, and there were friends and family from there, and that's where we sort of it was where we mingled from. It was it's quite something.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I feel like maybe you were lucky in that sense because you had family that worked in the airport. Although my parents arrived to this country through the airport, I never had anybody growing up that worked in the aviation space. My dad never told me what I could be when I was older. He kind of said, "Do what you want." So initially, I aimed to want to be a pilot, but there came a phase in my life where I didn't really want to be a pilot, but I wanted to do something in aviation. And my brother-in-law took me on a day out to go to a company called Marshall Aerospace near Cambridge, and the CEO at the time, I think it was his last week or two in the job, he took me on a tour between the engineering facilities, the actual sort of the manufacturing facilities of these aircraft, and then the actual runways and the hangars and where they operate. So Marshall Aerospace has the capability to design, build, and fly an aircraft all from one spot. And literally, the CEO took me on a day trip around this whole facility, and it blew my mind. And I remember after that moment, I kind of walked out of there, and I remember this thought distinctively. It was like, I want to be an aerospace engineer because I know that if I study aerospace engineering, at least it'll sort of point me in this direction of like getting into the aviation sector. But because I never had anybody in my family who's done anything in the aviation space, when I used to go and tell my uncles that, oh, I want to be an aerospace engineer, I used to get pulled to the side and I used to get told, Muhammad, listen, you're Arab, you're Muslim, your name is Muhammad. 9/11 just happened, like it wasn't too far away.
Yeah.
They don't hire Muslims in the aviation industry. I didn't have a person growing up that I looked at in the aviation industry who was a Muslim who I could relate to, that I thought, yeah, I could do that because they're doing that too. I mean, I'm so glad to hear that you did. I didn't, but I guess it didn't stop me. I wanted to do it anyway. It was like this thing inside me that I was so fascinated by aviation and about how planes fly, like looking up at the sky and just being absolutely bamboozled by how a plane is able to just lift off the ground and fly. Like
Yeah,
it
it
just
is
never made
incredible.
sense. So aerospace engineering, I guess, was able to scratch the surface on that. But I mean, even to this day, man, when I stand on the side of the runway and I look out, yeah, watching an A380 take off never gets old. It never gets old. It's always just as amazing. But yeah, I guess after studying aerospace engineering, if I was to tell you a bit about my career journey from there, during a placement year at uni, I worked at Lufthansa Technik, which is where we used to rip apart the landing gears for aircraft.
Yeah.
Every 8 to 10 years, you do the overhaul of these landing gears, and then we put them all back together again. So I was there on the actual line, making sure the process was nice and efficient. Finished my degree in aerospace engineering, graduated, and then I joined Heathrow Airport on the graduate program, the engineering graduate program specifically, where I spent 2.5 years going behind the scenes in every single engineering function that puts an airport together, all the pieces of the puzzle that are so important to making sure that an airport works, yet nobody ever talks about.
No limelight, yeah.
No limelight. They're just sort of trundling along in the background, and the only ever time you hear about them is when they go wrong. That's the only ever
Yeah.
time where people
Yeah.
even think about them. I was so blown away by the scale of the engineering that happens behind the scenes at an airport. I just couldn't help but like wanted to tell people about it. So I used to go like to my auntie and I used to show her pictures and videos of stuff at the airport. And I'm like, look how cool this is. She was like, why don't you share this? I'm like, what? But like, who'd care? Like, I just want to show you. She goes, no, like, try out, like, try share this stuff. I'm like, where? She goes, I don't know, like Instagram or something. I was like, okay. Literally, it was that. There was, I guess, a few other things that sparked together that made me really motivated to do that and put stuff online. Remember how I never had anybody who inspired me when I was younger? A lot of my inspiration came from watching YouTubers who used to explain stuff about the International Space Station and really break down these really complicated things in very simple ways. Shout out to Destin from Smarter Everyday. There's a YouTuber called Smarter Everyday who was like the foundations of like my introduction to science and aerospace engineering growing up. But I realized that actually I was inspired by the internet and by people explaining the things that they learned to me.
Yeah.
And when my auntie told me, why don't you do it? I kind of thought, you know what? No one's talking about this. So why not? And the rest was history. I'm sure we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible because, and like you were saying, like, you know, the role models and stuff. So there's a number of things to unpack there. So for me, my father worked he was a baggage handler. So he was on the front line, and he used to tell me hilarious amounts of stories that used to happen over there, and incidents with animals running across the runway, and there's tons of stories, and you're sitting there laughing. So at them. So I've never been operational. It was never, I only thought it was the plane, stairs, bag drop, you go kind of thing. I entered the back office world and I saw a completely different zone. I was like, oh my God, this is a complete. And my brother, who also worked in, he was completely operational. So we're on two different sides, and you'd have argumentative conversations of, well, this doesn't work because you do this. We, in essence, work for the same company most of the time. And it's hilarious. But you zoom out and you see how big this space is. And when I say role models, yes, my dad was a role model in the sense of he supported his sisters back in Pakistan from the wage that he would earn from his job, and support his family. So that was incredible. His friends at work, other baggage handlers, were from Africa, Kenya, and that was the family that I ended up adopting, because most of my family were in another country and they hadn't moved apart from my dad. So that was my family, the airport family. And that's all they used to talk about.
Wow.
They used to talk about a brand, and, you know, it used to be BA, it used to be Heathrow, what terminal, just all that was just surrounded by men talking about this and women just fed up of it. But it was quite hilarious. But that's it. But yeah, you're sort of saying that, you know, going in and joining the grad scheme and things like that, were there anything you did to sort of differentiate yourself in your application or anything like that? Because these grad schemes can be tough to get onto. Like, a lot of advice I give to people is, can you differentiate yourself? Is there one line that you can say, you know, I've sat at the airport over 100 times and I've watched and observed, I'm obsessed by it? Or is there anything that you can differentiate? Because, hey, like I said, getting on those schemes is not easy.
It's not easy. You're right. And that's actually my specific year. We had 1,500 applications for 4 spots.
Wow.
So it was very competitive. Like, I remember on the day where they done the assessment center, they literally showed us a bar chart of like how many people applied, stage 1, stage 2, and now there's 16 of you and only 4 are getting the job. And it was like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? Now, I think part of my application was, this is like what I tell people. As I tell people, there's like a 3-step. There's 3 things that need to align with any job that allow you to actually get this role. It's you, the job description, and the vision for the company.
Yeah.
If you're able to present yourself as the person who can align yourself and prove that your passions, your skills, if utilized correctly in this specific job description, will allow the company to achieve its goals and its fundamental vision for itself, and you're able to draw a line through all of those things and show that they're all equal and they're aligned, bingo, you get the job. So the way I presented myself when I read about the company, I realized that Heathrow Airport, something they massively focus on is the fact they're a people-focused organization. They are a people-centric organization. Yet, I was applying for the engineering graduate program. So I was going to be an engineer in a very people-centric environment. Now, when I read that, like, I read that we have a technical sort of environment, but very people-focused at the same time, my mind was blown. I never realized that.
How does that happen?
I was like, this is amazing. And the reason why I thought this was amazing is because that year that I spent working at Lufthansa, I was in a very technical environment. Not technical people, technical. It was all technical, no people. I had to spend my Saturdays and Sundays selling sofas at IKEA just so I can have some people interaction, right? So I knew how much I thrived off people, yet how much I wanted to dig my teeth into technical. So by understanding the job description, I was able to make that direct link in terms of, this is who I am. This is how I discovered who I am. I spent a year literally fixing technical parts of an aeroplane and getting them back up to scratch. Yet, during that year, I used to spend my Saturdays and Sundays selling sofas because I loved working with people and I loved interacting with people. So I know that if I get a chance to work on the graduate program at Heathrow Airport, that means that I'm going to be able to work with people but solve technical problems all in the same place. And if I am able to do that then I'll allow Heathrow to achieve its overarching vision of being a people-centric company that thrives, yet the foundations of engineering that it stands upon are perfectly looked after from an engineering perspective.
I think you've done it there. I've got the application.
See what I mean?
Literally,
Like,
if you were able to explain that and someone was on the receiving end in a graduate program and you're able to articulate that, I would be like, wow, like if you're able to piece together that story through what was just there and the corporate goals and the vision to what you're going to, and how that you're going to play a role in that. Yeah. I'll sign you tomorrow kind of thing. Yeah. So, okay. Well done.
I think that's with every job description. If you read the job description enough and you read the company vision and the value statements enough, you'll realize who they're looking for. And then you need to work backwards in you to understand what is it about you that stands out, that's very unique to you. It's not about just what's unique to you. It's about what's unique to you that directly plugs into that job description, which directly plugs into the bigger vision for the company.
So this is a segment that will come on later, and it's advice to other young people. But while we're here, I'm going to say, when I was that age and doing that, I never did that. I saw the title, I saw what was required, that was it. I would apply. I never added any context of how I fit into the role or anything. It is just, here's my evidence of hitting your checkboxes.
Yeah.
And I'm going to probably say out there that 70% to possibly 80% of people who apply do that.
Yeah.
They hit the check marks.
Yeah.
Not how do I strategically fit in or how do I characteristically fit in. Do you think that's getting less and less with sort of the next generation of workforce, that people are sort of, I kind of call the next generation, and I may be a part of it, of Netflix, that I just want instant results. Like, here's the application, I'm just going to do it. Whether they want me, they want me. If they don't, you can really change that, can't you?
You know what's really interesting? I don't think that this generation realizes that for every, let's do the maths, 1,500 for spots, I don't know, for every, let's say 100 people who are just dashing an application across, there's one who's sitting there critiquing every word of that job description and making sure they align. So if they think they can go up against, in this massive competitive market, they need to remember that people like me and you like exist, and they're out there and they're hungry.
Yeah.
They're very hungry and they're willing to put in the work. If you're not willing to put in the work, it's theirs. And you need to realize that. Like the amount of young people that tell me, I ask them, I'm struggling to get a job. I'm like, okay, how many, what have you applied for jobs? And they're like, yeah, man, I applied for like 300. I'm like, pause. How many of those 300 do you actually want to work for? How many of those 300 would you genuinely, if you read the job description, thought, bingo, this is where I want to build my career? And they're like, oh, maybe like 5. I'm like, so then why didn't you spend all that time just focusing on that 5?
Yeah. I feel like I'm hearing my niece and nephew right now, like saying, I've just applied for so many jobs, I can't find any success or anything. It's just like, how much time did you spend? Wow, it took me 10 minutes. I'm like, wow, it doesn't feel like that's the right amount. Yeah.
And people are like, oh, can you send me a CV? I'm like,
as an example,
send me a CV. Every single one of my CVs has a job description and company after it. There's no such thing as a generic CV. Every single one of my CVs has been ripped apart and put back together again with the words in the job description, the words in the vision of the company, and I work backwards from that and I plug my skills into that. Like, never do I just have a generic CV. So, like I said, for every single 100 people who are just throwing an application across the line, you got people like me and you who are going to sit there and meticulously write an application.
But this is it now. Like, I'm going to set you, I know you say me and you, I made these mistakes, yeah? I did these when I was 17, 18, 19 years old.
Likewise.
It was just easy. I didn't ever, and this is the gem of advice. If you're young and you're looking at this, you're looking at your first job, second job, maybe your 10th, 50th, you need to use the job description to fill in the bullet points of what you do and how you match. Yeah? Let me talk you through the process. You'll go through an AI process where will look for the matching words from the job description. Okay, that's the first sift. Then you'll go in front of another person. Like, okay, I know what the job role is because I'm recruiting for it. Yeah, great. Well, this seems great. He thinks he or she can do X percent of the work, top of the list. If you've just said, I've got sales experience, I worked at IKEA, I've done that. Lovely. Is there more? No? Okay. the other 100,000 that I need to get through, bottom of the list.
Exactly.
You need to add context, that differentiator.
Yeah.
I didn't learn that until very late because I didn't have someone telling me that this is the elements that you need to look at. These are what you need to tweak and focus. That came later.
Yeah.
When I had an older brother, I had others that said, this is what I learned. But in early days, when you're young, post uni, you just want to throw out the net and see what sticks, kind of thing.
Exactly. And we all went through those mistakes. It's a learning process, and I don't wanna sit here on my high horse saying, oh yeah, no, we all, trust me, every single one of us went through this, and we all had random jobs here and there before we stepped into the aviation industry. My first job was stacking shelves in a relative supermarket. You're not gonna get your first job on the check-in desk at an airport.
No.
You start somewhere, but every time you hear these little like bits of advice here and there, just make a conscious effort to make your application that 1% better, 2% better, and then just slowly tweak it to the point where you look at it and you're like, damn, that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone starts somewhere.
No, that's great. And then coming back to the story, your aunt pushing you to, hey, why don't you share this? Why don't you share this? So
yeah.
What was the thought process after this? You got it on your phone. You've captured this stuff. I'm imagining you haven't voice overed anything at this point because a lot of people say, oh, I kind of just put it on the internet and see what's up.
Yeah.
A lot of people, because I'm now doing this with content and stuff, the amount of effort that you have to go through, right? And the thinking, the planning. Talk me through that piece where you've just had this idea. Now, how do you bring it to reality? What do you go through?
So one thing about me is ever since I was like 16, I always was the kid with the camera videoing stuff and then going home and then turning it into like holiday videos and stuff like that. Like if you go on my YouTube channel all the way back when 2016, 2015, I was the kid with a selfie stick. Do you know what I mean? Making these little YouTube montage videos, right? So I love making videos. I love sort of the creative sort of storytelling in video form, but I didn't really do much with it. Like when I was what, 19, 18, 19. No, before then, 2015, how old was I? I can't remember. But like 2015, I didn't really do much with it. I was just kind of making holiday videos.
Yeah.
But there came a critical time in my life where I discovered personal development. When I was 21 years old, during that 1 year at Lufthansa, I started reading books about personal development. I started reading books about like the importance of your thoughts and the thoughts turning into your words turning into your actions turning into your habits becoming your character leading to your destiny. I was like, wow, like all of my destiny depends on my thoughts. Like these genuine, like fundamental truths about the world started to just like shock my brain and like open my eyes to the reality of it all. I started to become more financially aware. I started to read books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, books like The Power of Now, about the importance of mindfulness and meditation and being the observer of your thoughts and not being just sucked into it all. So that 1 year of my life fundamentally shifted everything. And what I used to do is I used to sort of take all the things that I'm learning from these books. I used to go chill with my friends and I used to just talk about what I'm learning. And I remember this was like one day, right? We were all just sat back in the day. We used to go to shisha cafes and stuff. Yeah. We all just sat in a shisha cafe. And then I remember for 45 minutes straight, I was just explaining to them this thing that I had learned in a book about a growth mindset. And like, it was just pouring out of my heart. Like I was just so amazed that nobody had taught me this stuff. I just really wanted to share it. And for 45 minutes straight, bro, I was just spewing this passion from my heart. And then one of my friends looked at me afterwards and he was like, bro, you just said everything that I've never even thought but wished I did in a way that I could have never said it. You should be a motivational speaker. Because that was unbelievable. I wish I recorded it. And I was like, what? Me? I'm just an engineer. I sell sofas on the weekend. But what are you talking about? It just didn't. I was like, nah, I just dismissed it. But then I realized that passion was in me, and I really wanted to teach people this stuff. So before my auntie told me about, I'll go share this stuff online, I made this quiet little page called, I think it was called continuous soul search or continuous development of some sort. And I used to put all these motivational quotes on there about do this and do that. And I still remember I have a video of me sat up in a tree talking about how, our thoughts are so important. Guys should look out for your thoughts because your life depends on it. And I remember for 6 months I posted 3 things, and I put one story up, and it just died. It just
Yeah.
died. It never went anywhere. But when my but here's what happened, right? And I'm gonna get to answer your genuine question. Sorry, I'm taking a long
No,
route,
it's
but this
fine.
context is important. When I joined Heathrow Airport in their graduate program, that passion that was in me about like leadership, thoughts, vision, like goal setting, human nature, psychology. I was so passionate about this stuff. During the onboarding process of my graduate program, I became that guy. So every time they would ask, so, somebody share something about this, every time I put my hand up to say something, all the graduates go, oh, here he goes again. He's gonna give us like a, and everyone's like,
Here
all right,
comes the
listen
30
up, listen
minutes.
up. Like, no, not 30 minutes, but like, I used to just drop bars, man. Like, I used to just, and this is what I used to get told anyway. I used to get told, like, even the facilitator, she's like, Mo, like, where did you read this stuff? Because this is great. This is great. Like, we learned this stuff in training. And I was like, I don't know. I just say it. So on the last day of training, the manager, rather than like the facilitator, rather than facilitating it herself or himself, it was a guy called Jack. He was like, Mo, he handed me the pen. He was like, Mo, you do this bit. And the question was, what makes a good leader? And as I stood up, I just felt in my sort of flow state. I took the pen and I started to write on the board what makes a good leader. And then I had introduced myself as Mo T at that point.
Yeah.
So one of the girls, she was like, they need to be motivational. And I literally wrote Mo_T_vational. And that's where motivate started. And I was like, damn, like motivate. It works. So when my auntie told me, why don't you share stuff online? I realized I didn't want it just to be airport stuff.
Yeah.
I realized that dream that I had with those 3 posts online, this was the time. So I rechanged the name of that page from continuous whatever to motivate. And I was like, this is me. So what I used to do is I used to upload pictures every single day from around the airport, and I used to just write a caption. I used to pour my heart out into a caption. And I actually sold my car so I can create time in my day where on the train where I can just sit and type.
Wow.
So it was a bit of a financial decision,
Yeah.
a bit, because I took that money, I invested it. But I was like, okay, if I want to manufacture time to write these captions and to invest in my page, how can I do that? And I was like, well, if I can sit on a train for 45 minutes each day, that's enough time to write something and put a post up. So I literally, part of a process of selling my car, I didn't have a car for like 2 years. Most blissful time of my life. I just sit there, I take a picture from around the airport, and I just write a caption. Picture, caption, picture, caption. Tiny little video, caption. The captions would sometimes be motivational.
Yeah.
Sometimes be explaining what it is that we're looking at.
Mhm.
So did you know that this air bridge works like this? It has this mechanism, has this safety feature. And I would write these long captions explaining it. Something happened though when COVID hit and TikTok emerged. Is that people didn't care about pictures anymore. People cared about videos. So then that past life of making videos crept into the equation. At that point, I probably had like 3,000 or 4,000 followers, and it was all just pictures and captions. I never used to do much videos. But all of a sudden, videos emerged. And then, rather than like take a picture of something and write a caption, I would just pull my phone out, take a video of it, and explain what I would have explained in the caption, but just in verbal, just speech there and then. And I discovered that I'm really good at making really complicated things simple.
Yeah.
And that's the same skill that I picked up when I was explaining the motivational stuff to my friends. And it's like the same skill set, just fell into place. God like put it all in place. The video editing from when I was like a kid, the motivational speaking, the ability to explain complicated things in simple ways, access to an airport, understanding the engineering, all just kicked together into 45 little second videos about how things work at the airport. And that just became my thing. Every time I see something cool, I just pull my phone out, take a video of it, and put it on the internet. And I just kept doing that. And every time I'd upload, I'd make them a little bit better. First, I never used to put captions. Then I started adding captions. Then I started editing it up. Then I learned how to do loops. Then this, then that. And just slowly, man, I just started putting stuff on there. And TikTok blew up first. Like TikTok went completely viral first. Instagram quickly followed afterwards. And then this community emerged of people who just wanted to learn about the airport. And all I was sharing was the stuff that I found interesting. But I always
you see every day.
the stuff that I see every day, the stuff that people walk past, Bro, I picked up a piece of FOD. Yeah, FOD is foreign object debris, for anyone who doesn't know. Foreign object debris. Literally, it's a bit of plastic. I picked it up and I put it in the bin. And I recorded myself do that. That video got 8.9 million views. And I was just explaining what FOD is.
Yeah.
And again, I just had this urge to educate about what I was seeing and what I was learning. The same way I had this urge to educate when it was the motivational stuff. One thing that's fundamental about me is I love learning and then teaching what I've learned.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm discovering more and more every day, that I don't just love making videos. I love learning, then teaching what I've learned. And my weapon of choice, so to speak, is video.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, yeah, there's so many pieces to unpick in that. I mean, like, it will, people would think, oh, lucky guy, right place, right time, just start off TikTok and stuff like that. But what you need to remember from that piece that Mo just described, and it's stuff that we brought up in other podcasts, is the effort the person has gone through. And I talk about this with, startups, and you'll have loads of failed businesses and failed ideas. The YouTube videos, the motivational thing, 3 videos and then you stopped. It created a seed in your mind, and you learnt a mechanism there. Yeah. You did the reading and then the speaking to your friends and more public speaking in smaller, larger groups. Yeah. Then that triggered it. You've trialed and errored. You're never going to come up with an idea, do it, and it hits just like that. There's very 1% cases that when that works. Yeah. So it is effort on the person's behalf. You have to take the step forward. And so I commend you on that. It's a journey. It takes so many different occurrences, all that sort of stuff to happen. But I discovered your videos in COVID as well. And I was just like, oh, wait, that's pretty cool. I travel a lot for work. And even I started recording my point of view of traveling for work. I never voiceovered because you know why? I started getting conscious. What my voice going to sound like? Am I going to put my face on camera and stuff? Yeah. How did you overcome that? Because a lot of people start thinking, oh, let me make a face with YouTube or anything like that. They have that fear factor. Yeah. And I have that fear factor, but I've overcome it by doing stuff like this. But good. How do you overcome it? How did you overcome it? Was it an issue?
I think I started overcoming it when I was very young. And it was and again, it's amazing how actually, like, this is one of the first times I've zoomed out so much to like try and figure out how all of this stuff pieces together. Because the first time I sort of became okay with my voice was I went to an Islamic school growing up, which meant that every single day somebody had to do the call to prayer. Yeah. The adhan. Somebody had to stand up and do the call to prayer. I was 15 at the time. Now, any 15-year-old who tries to raise their voice, your voice boxes break in. You're going through puberty. It's
not a great time.
It's not a great time. No. Trust me, it's not a great time. Your voice is unpredictable beyond measure. And here I was standing in front of the whole school at the tip of my voice, like trying to create a melodic tune. Yeah. And sometimes it would go wrong. And in front of the whole school, I'd sound like a broken record, right? And the shame and the embarrassment that would seep into my soul. Yeah, like from the first time I ever stood up to do the call to prayer. Yeah. I was so scared. I still remember I was holding on to the radiator and my knees were shaking so violently that I had to hold on with 2 hands just to try and calm. You can hear it in my voice, like when I was saying, but like I had to go through that again and again and again. I've probably done the call to prayer over the years, probably about 500 times over the course of 2 or 3 years at school, just every single day. And like 500 times of standing up there and doing the call to prayer, to the point where on the last day of school, when I knew this was going to be my last call to prayer, I pulled out my phone and I voice recorded it. Like I was confident enough with my voice that I would record it. We all hate recording our voices.
No one likes it.
No one likes to hear their voiceover. But I was like, you know what? I'm all right with it. So that sort of shivering in my boots when I was 15, I guarantee pays dividends that when I was 21, I'd happily stand on stage and I'd speak to a crowd, or I'd be in front of camera, or I'd speak, all of these little things where, and then for example, after the call to prayer, it was, oh Mo, can you read Quran in the assembly? And I'd stand on stage and I'd read in front of an assembly hall and just constantly putting myself outside my comfort zone, not realizing what I'm doing, but just knowing that I was really scared in the process, genuinely fearful of what people would think of me and the judgment that come my way. but I kind of just did it anyway, very unconsciously. I now look back and realize that's where it all started. That's why I can pull out a phone and just do it first time. Of course, when I first started doing content, it wasn't that easy. I still remember the first time I made like a YouTube video. That one of me, I told you I was sitting up in a tree and I made that first video. I still have all the drafts for that first time, and one day I want to go back and I'm gonna take a look at them, right? But it was October 2018. Yeah, October 2018. Oh no, June 2018.
Yeah.
June 2018. I sat up in a tree and I repeated myself again and again and again. I kept messing up and I kept starting again. That's the only way, by the way. The only way you're gonna get better is to go through it.
Yeah.
Expect the fear, expect the shivering, expect the nerves. It's part of the process.
Again, this is a skill, and I would say to any young person starting out your career and stuff, this element of being able to talk to another human being, because again, this is another segment that we do cover later of advice that we give, but we'll cover it now, kind of thing. Is a lot of people now used to talking via text.
Yeah.
So WhatsApp and all that sort of stuff. The face-to-face interaction, the change of tone of voice, all that doesn't exist. So that worries me in future generations. That does that disappear? The human interaction, being able to read the room and all that sort of stuff. And then do you start having complications with people not being able to do motivational speaking or public speaking because the shyness exists a lot more? So for me, a lot of people are like, oh, you've got the character to do this sort of stuff, to do podcasting, to do public speaking. I don't rehearse content or anything like that. It is truly coming from here.
Yeah.
Like we've discussed how this is going to go.
Yeah.
And what the concept or idea is. It's completely gone on in a different path, but this is another human talking to another human, right?
Yeah.
This is it. It's the natural way. I worry that in our future gens of workforces, this will disappear. You'll get AI, you get automation and stuff where people, do they naturally start becoming robotic themselves? That I just do a certain activity, I go. I just do a certain activity and I go. People still need to remember, and I implore anyone young exploring their career, never forget the human touch and the human interaction. Have a conversation with someone always, whether you aspire to be something like them, wanting to learn, or just wanting to practice speech. Call someone for a coffee in the workplace and just say, hey, I would love to hear more about what you do. Watch them, observe them, and learn from them. That interaction of 10, 15-minute coffee will give you the skill, I think, or upskill you and a bit more confidence. That extra 1%, that extra 1% to overcome that. Because I think it's going to become more and more common. I don't know what you think on that.
Definitely, man. And actually, one of the things that pained me the most thinking back about my educational experience was that nobody told me this. So one thing that really, really, really frustrated me when I look back at sort of my university experience was that nowhere in my engineering degree did they tell me that 90% of my success in the real world, 80% of my success in the real world has nothing to do with my technical skills and only depends on my people skills. And that's a fact. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
And in the opening few pages, it literally talks like this. It's like 80% of your financial success. I think it says 82%. I don't know how they got that granularity of data, but 80% of your success in your career does not depend on your does not depend on your technical abilities, but only depends on your ability to deal with people. When I found that out, and I guess remember that year in Lufthansa where all these things started to become apparent to me. When I joined Heathrow Airport and I just started Motivate and I created the page, the first thing that I used to do is I used to go online. I used to find all the engineering societies in London, City, Queen Mary, all these different engineering societies. I used to message them and I used to say, hey, I'm an engineer and I work at Heathrow Airport. Can I come and give a talk? And obviously they'd be like, sure. And they'd see like the social proof online. And I used to go give them a talk. And I never used to tell them what this talk's about to be about. I used to say, I'm an engineer, I'm going to come give you a careers talk. And when I used to walk in, I used to give them 15 minutes of engineering and 45 minutes of the importance of people skills. And I used to draw an image in their mind that no matter how much they work on their technical abilities here, there is a missing link. There is a weakest link. And that weakest link is when you take an idea from here, put it into here, and transmit it through the air into somebody else's eardrum. How does that message land? Doesn't matter how good your ideas are up here, but if you can't translate them into a movement of your tongue that transmits through the world, they might as well die up here.
Yeah.
And I used to literally make them realize, like, hold on a minute, I'm spending 4 years of my life getting better up here. How many minutes am I even spending getting better at this? 0. And they all walk out, they're going, I haven't spent a single minute getting better at people skills. Yeah, I think I'm going to succeed in the world. Something needs to change. And then I used to recommend them all the books, all the podcasts, all the resources that they can upskill themselves to get better at the people stuff. And I literally used to do that. I done that for like 2 years straight, emailing, sending DMs, going, doing the talk on loop for 2 years straight.
But see, this is it. Like, it's you taking the initiative. A lot of people, you need to remember that opportunities don't just land on your plate. Yeah, it's very rarely that ever happens, and it's these avenues when you put yourself out that then the opportunities sort of bounce back. It's you get the energy in the universe that you put in. Yeah,
100%.
I think that's definitely a valid point. But sort of coming back, and it's fascinating to talk about career because you are so young, still discovering what you're going to be and things like that. And so you're now TikTok's blowing off; it's getting so much attention. I want to ask, how did your workplace find this? Because loads of corporates have, social media guidelines and all sorts. Not saying that you were doing anything negative at all, but some people want to put a cap on it. They don't want the brand or the company's a star often. How was the reaction in Heathrow?
Mixed. To be honest, it was a mixed reaction, but there was 2 sides of the coin, and I guess I understand both sides. But to show you how, I guess, in real time, how it played out was this. When I first started the whole thing, there was a quote that rang in my mind, which they had told me during the onboarding process. They told us, hey, if you have a good idea, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. So I was like, cool. Cool. They told me, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness.
All within rules. Yes, there are definitely.
So now here's what of course. Here's what I done with that. I went up to somebody very senior within the engineering team, and I said, listen, if I want to talk about the airport online, what are the red lines? What are the security processes? What are the bits of information? What are the key things that I should not talk about? What are those things? And that person sat down with me and they literally gave me an entire breakdown of everything that can and can't be spoken about online. And then he also gave me a bit of sort of an insight into, okay, here's a thought process to take every piece of content through before you put it on the internet. If this was to be in the wrong hands, could it be used in a malicious way? Etc, etc, etc. So I had this framework, although it was my own framework, but it was of my best understanding of the world, and I asked for advice. I created a framework for myself that I knew I could work within. And then I just went for it. And I just put stuff online. And I'd put stuff online. And like I said, initially it started off as pictures, so the risk was minimal. And it also started off with 0 followers, so nobody cared, right? I was just that kid online who puts pictures up and writes captions about motivation, sometimes in airports, sometimes on the internet. And I just kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And sometimes I'd upload something on my stories that like the media managers would follow me and they'd see something, be like, hey man, like, let's get rid of this if you don't mind. And I'd be like, sure. And I always was like, yeah, whatever, sure. Because I know that for every one thing I can't talk about, there's 100 things I can, so it's not worth the battles. Yeah. I always got them on side. I was like, okay, teach me, like, what is it that I can't talk about? And I got them on side. And I also, another thing that I guess I'm blessed with is because I joined on the graduate scheme, I didn't just come through the operation. I had the sort of, I guess, the exposure to the C-suite that meant that I could play a riskier game. I knew I wasn't just going to get plugged out because I'm just a number in the system. I was on the Future Leaders graduate program.
Yeah.
And, I had met all the C-suite executives. One of them was my sponsor. So I had I guess, a network that I knew I couldn't just get swept under the carpet and just dragged through the system, which I know for a lot of people in the aviation industry across social media, they just want a number from the operation and they do get squished, unfortunately, because the company doesn't want to have to deal with them. But I had I guess I leveraged that. That's an unfair advantage that I used to get to where I get to. I guess it was then after a while, people started to put red herrings out there and put lies. So there was a time where people would email the media team at Heathrow and be like, massive security breach at the airport, write a fat email, and there was a link. And where did that link take them? to my
Goodies.
TikTok page. And then luckily I had allies within the media team. Now, for every 15 people of the media team that was outraged at how this guy could put a video up like that, there was that one guy that would knock sense into them to be like, pause, what it actually is in the video that is causing a security threat. And he was my ally, and there was a few of them that would tone down and genuinely knock sense into
People, yeah.
the discussion. And I know now when I look back, like, it was those allyships, it was those relationships that meant that I could keep going, because they would umbrella a lot of the stuff from me. Like, a lot of stuff I didn't realize was being discussed in the background. There's a lot of people who tried to knock me down, but it was those allies that put an end to it before it even got to me. And it just goes the importance of relationships and the importance of speaking to people and being open-minded and being genuine about your approach. Fundamentally, I just wanted to you could tell that what I was doing was in a way that was adding value. But there was a critical point where I had enough data to prove that what I was doing was to add value. And I had apprentices who had joined Heathrow Airport only because they found out through my page. I had graduates who had joined Heathrow Airport only because they found out through my page. I had employees from across the whole business who were messaging me saying, hey man, I joined because I found your page and I thought I'd love to work at the airport. So I had now a mass of people that I thought, look, like, this stuff isn't just, oh yeah, I'm going around making videos. This is having a genuine impact to our talent pipeline. And what I did is I then presented that to the decision makers. I presented that to the decision makers and I brought them on site. And I made them realize, like, look, like, what I'm doing actually is having a genuine impact. And it was that when my social media following actually crept past Heathrow Airport's official channels, that was the day I realized, okay, this is serious. You know, if you add up TikTok and Instagram, there's more followers on my platforms than the official Heathrow Airport channels. And I think that's unbelievable. But it just goes to show the potential that is within each of us if we go independent. We don't have to rely on something else. And now, when I presented that to our COO at the time, she actually created a role for me within the social media team to go and try out, see how I feel like doing this full time, see if I enjoy it, and add value to the organization's social media presence through this talent skills that I guess I've picked up across the years. So there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people who try and knock you down. People see you doing well, they just don't like it. I actually once plotted a chart, which was how many times do I upload something on LinkedIn versus how many complaints do I get. Literally an X, Y, and Z. And the proportionality was unbelievable. There was a few specific managers and leaders across the organization where the more I'd upload on LinkedIn about the things that I'm doing, the more they would just have this something, I don't know what it was in them, that meant they just wanted to complain and they wanted to drag me down. But there were only a few people. The majority, go crack on, mate, do your thing, you're doing amazing stuff.
So this is an intro, and I think this echoes all over the travel sphere. Yeah. I would say maybe less hotels and online booking stuff, because this is user generated content we're starting to talk about, especially when you start associating a brand. So a lot of people are like, don't mention my brand, you do your own thing. Don't mention the word Heathrow, and don't show up in uniform, just do you. Yeah. And that's your own personal brand. But sometimes you're a representation of the brand. You proudly represent these brands. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think only brands are starting to realize now that, listen, this is a lot of talking to brands, by the way, that this UGC, this user generated content, whether that's cabin crew recording their day at work, how their journey is, all within means and that is respectful and follows guidelines.
It's safe.
It is free marketing for you. Your brand is going. I'm going to tell you something. Like, when I research a destination, I go on TikTok to find short form videos of where I'm going to go, how I'm going to travel. A lot of the time is their experience on their aircraft. I have made choices of what seat I will sit on based on a video. Like, business class actually looks pretty decent, or premium economy. It's an upsell that was made by a cabin crew that will never get associated to them. And it's so hard to track, but that's what it leads to. Increase in revenue, increase in opportunity. You said increase in applications and stuff in the recruitment sphere.
Yeah.
I think some brands are cottoning onto that. And there's a lot we can learn from like we said, what you've grown up with and the next generation has grown up with, the YouTube world, where people create brands from their own identity.
Yeah.
There are very big YouTubers that are now creating businesses and brands, whether they're sweets, whether there's drinks and all that, where they are the marketing. They don't have to pay agencies millions and millions to build their brand. They are the brand and they have the loyal following.
Yeah.
That's an intriguing step that, you know, especially in the airline and the travel space, that we should create. And this is one reason I created this today, is to give people a platform to promote their own brand, whatever they represent, however they represent it, have a detailed discussion on that and create that platform so they are known and they further build that brand. That's what it's all about. And I think that's key. And I don't know if you find that as well, but so what you raised there is, you know, people raise concerns and stuff like that. You know, in a lot of these podcasts, a lot of people don't ask you the detail. Did any of that feedback or anything sort of pushback that you got affect you mentally, your mental space? Like, I'm only trying to do good. Like, why am I getting this? And then also I'll talk about the other side, because TikTok's quite public. The comments, they're not always the nicest comments. How do you deal with that?
The comments don't bother me as much as the people who smile in your face and then try and tear you down do. That's probably the most painful. And I've had the unfortunate, but I guess expected encounter with people like that, where in your face they smile and they say, "Oh my God, you're doing amazing stuff. Well done." Within an hour, they're on the phone trying to rip you apart. And then that feedback gets passed on to you, and you're like, I literally saw them an hour ago. What?
Yeah.
What? And it's funny, sometimes they ask you for a favor. You go to do that favor, and then they say, why are they not doing their job? And you're like, I was doing you a favor. And now you're saying I'm not, you know what I mean? So it can sometimes be difficult, especially when you're just trying to do good. And like this, when it comes to the social media stuff, specifically, yeah, it's not easy, man. It's not easy. Some of my, I guess, darkest days in terms of like what's going on in here are the days where I feel like I'm fighting against something for no reason. Like when somebody's genuinely just out to get you and you don't know why. But you kind of have to remind yourself that there's two ways to build the tallest tower in the world. The first one is to build your own and build the tallest tower in the world. And the second one is to tear everyone else's down. And when you realize that, you know, some people go for tactic one and you're going for tactic one to build your tallest tower, and other people are just here to tear everyone else's tower down, you stop taking it personally. You realize it's not about you, it's about them. There's genuinely something in them that has made them not want to see you succeed. Maybe you're doing the thing that they've dreamt about, you know? And it's amazing. Like Alex Hormozy was in a podcast with Chris Wicks the other day, and he was saying something that completely resonated with me. Completely. He said that some people will watch you do well, and you right now, even though you're young, are doing the thing that is the peak of their mountain. Like that's the thing that they dreamt about. Their career aspirations was to do what you're doing. Now for you, this isn't the peak of your mountain. You've still got a long way to climb. But when they see that you're doing that thing, that was the peak for them, they don't want to see you do that thing. Because that reminds them of how far they have to go. And not only they have to go, but it reminds them they haven't putting in the work that you have, and that they have let their own selves down. When they recognize that they've let their own selves down because they haven't been putting in the work, that frustration, that anger means, well, the only way they know how to deal with it is to bring you down, is to try and tear you down and to strip you from that achievement, even though you haven't done anything to them. But it's just there's an internal conversation that they're having within themselves that says, I should have been doing that. And they just don't want to see you have it, even though they haven't been putting in the work to get there. And man, I don't even know if I should share this, but I looked after the runway lights and the aerodrome systems for 2.5 years, right? I was the subject matter expert, the SME for all the aerodrome systems on the airport. I got invited to an event to go and speak and share the maintenance strategy that I implemented that drastically improved our results.
Yeah.
Like, they had a huge impact, and I was able to find discoveries and stuff, and it was a great sort of achievement that I had. And this company invited me to come and share my story. I got a call from one of the senior leaders within the part of the business that said, "I don't believe you have the expertise to go and speak at a panel like that," even though I know for a fact he doesn't have the expertise to speak about this specific thing. But I feel like because they hadn't been invited to go speak at a panel, they feel like you shouldn't be doing it either. And even though, funny thing is, I wasn't even representing the airport in that sense. They invited me to go speak at this privately. Yet still, he was like, "I don't believe you have the expertise to do that. I want you to drop out of that." And I had a choice. It was either going to be one of them ones, or you cut your losses and you go on to then move on to the next opportunity. You have to learn how to fight the right battles. But
and I think that's a key bit of advice as well that I give to young people out there. And I do hear my nieces and nephews when they work of small incidents that really demotivate them. And I think we as a workforce also need to be cognizant of the next generation of workforce, mental resilience and exposure to problems that you may have grown up with or you've matured with in the workspace. The next generation haven't, right? And harsh words or just harsh realities or cutting someone's opportunities without explaining it and things like that really does take a mental toll on people. People think it's a personal attack, especially in the youth today. Like, a lot of the environment needs to be perfect and needs to be well nurtured and stuff, but that's not what reality is. And sometimes harsh treatment of people or harsh words can really demotivate someone and put them really in a bad place where they're like, "I just don't want to work anymore," or "I'm never going to work here again," kind of thing. All from just one incident of you shouldn't have done this. There's ways to deliver feedback, but also it's never personal in business. Sometimes in small percentages it may be, but you need to see the best in someone else's person. Just think to yourself, this person may be having a bad day. They may have had a bad meeting. Give them the benefit of doubt. Then if it's continuous, then I believe the next step is to have a conversation with the person. That is there something I've done that's not works for you? Be the mature person in that sense. That needs to be your growth element. Never take it personally that, I'm going to leave the organization now. I just got told off. That's not how you should work. So you need to have the mental resilience on that one. But it's really surprising when you say the comments piece. I mean, I've done a few brands in the past and stuff like that, where innocently I've posted things, normal things. I've done small e-commerce sites, and I've just absolute trolls of people like, "This is terrible. This is rubbish." I'm like, I've taken it personally. Like,
really?
No, I put effort in this. Why is it rubbish? I'm intrigued and wanting to know. And when I speak to people like yourselves and others, like, you really do just need to ignore it. Don't get personally invested in it. It's hard, It's hard. You see those metrics and those numbers, they're addictive. They're a dopamine hit. And that's the other thing I want to come on about. How did you feel when you start hitting those million numbers? And then how do you avoid looking at those comments?
So the comment I made about sort of the comments don't matter, that applies to 98% of the things that I've done online. There's 2% where within a 2-week period, I probably received more hate than I've ever received in my entire life, concentrated within probably a 48-hour period, not even a 2-week period, 48-hour period. It was where a podcast that I had done was taken out of context. It was repurposed into something that it wasn't. Got put on Twitter, and I think it hit probably about 15 million views. It went completely viral to the point where comedians and mainstream comedians were ripping into me, and they had no idea who I was. They have no idea the intentions behind that clip. They have no idea what I was actually saying. It was just a very badly clipped clip, which completely like reduced any of the meaning that I was trying to say. Yes, I could have phrased it in a better way. Yes, I had maybe a lack of understanding about the topic, and I understand that there was part of me. I don't just blame things on other people. There was definitely something I could have done better. But that 48-hour period, bro, I used to wake up feeling so heavy, because one thing that sometimes that I realized about myself in that period was I hate feeling misunderstood. Genuinely. One of the things that makes me feel most pain is feeling misunderstood. And that's why those, when somebody's trying to rip you, whether they know you or don't know you, you feel misunderstood. We all have good intentions. especially when you're just trying to inspire the next generation, trying to do something that benefits somebody. Yet people are completely ripping into you. You have an e-commerce business that you're trying to do. You have good intentions. You want to build something for yourself. Yet you feel misunderstood because somebody's just destroying you. That feels heavy sometimes. It does. But you have to remind yourself these people don't know you. They don't know your intentions. They don't know what's going on in your heart. They don't know what your dreams are. They don't know what your vision for yourself is. They don't know anything about you. And they won't know anything about you. Because people like that don't want to know anything about you. All they want is their own little dopamine kick of feeling heard. Because for every comment that you get, they're looking for somebody to like their comment. And that they get their little tiny dopamine hit while they can be sitting in the background. They're not brave enough to put themselves out there and be a target.
Yeah.
So instead, they just try and get their mini little dopamine hits by being in the comments and saying something nasty and hope that somebody replies or hope that somebody likes it. Just remember, these people don't know you. They don't know your intentions. Don't let that slow you down. I let it slow me down sometimes. And then I realized, like, yo, my dreams are too big to let this slow me down.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental bottom line that I come to. Whether it's somebody at work, whether it's somebody who doesn't know me, my dreams are far too big to let this slow me down. And the amount of times where I have wanted to quit because of a throwaway comment here and there of somebody who I thought was on my side, but it turns out they wasn't, it really makes you just want to let go of the whole thing and be like, ugh,
what's the point?
I'm done with it. Yeah, what's the point? But that's a dangerous place to be in.
And yeah, I agree. And one of the best lines I've seen, and it was, again, short form video content that I got. It's Tom Holland, Spider-Man, the guy who plays it. He drops a line and says, "If you've got a problem with me, text me. If you don't have my number, you're not important for me enough to worry about." I think that's so relatable and so thick. It's like, yeah, these people they don't know you.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with what you're saying. So yeah, definitely use that line on anyone. I think it works really, really well. So yeah, I think that great coverage on the career that you've had so far. Now this new transition. So we're in the here and now, and I've followed you for a while now on Insta. We've been in communication back and forth trying to arrange this, and even just, you know, I really like resonating with people that you're down the road. You work for a different company than I do, but we work down the road. We're in the same sphere, trying to achieve the same things. I love the fact that I'm able to just sort of say, like, love what you're doing, man. Keep going, keep going. Those comments, I get them as well, and I'm really enjoying that. You know, just like you were called the airport guy, I went to a World Aviation Festival a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I'm like, hey, Portugal, you're the podcast guy, no? Nice. I'm like, wow, it's working. Like, what I'm wanting to is reaching out. It's still not there.
Perfect. One step at a time.
Exactly that. It is. But what does that now sort of next step look like for you? Now, you've given up your passion of love and of engineering, and then you have got this other passion that you've developed. Are you giving up? Are you balancing? Are you moving totally away? What does it look like for you now, this new transition? And it's lovely that, hats off for Heathrow supporting you during this and giving you this opportunity.
Absolutely.
So talk us through that. What does that next phase look like, and how does it feel?
So it's a 4 month secondment that I am currently 3 months in. This secondments are there just for somebody to try, right? It's like a try before you buy.
Yeah.
On both sides. One thing that I learned about myself is that number one, I love the operation. I love the operation. I live for the operation. Like that buzz of being airside, of seeing things move around, of the hustle and bustle. That's where I really genuinely thrive. Now, when I was in that environment, the thing that I really wanted to share with the world is how amazing it is and how amazing a career in that environment could be. And that's really what I wanted to share with the world, and why I continue to want to share with the world is how amazing sort of an aviation career is. But when you just create content about the career, you don't actually have the career.
Yeah.
You realize you're not learning as much, because you might be learning the skill set of storytelling and stuff like that. Fair enough. That's amazing, the skill set of storytelling. But I was learning how to be a storyteller on the side while I was being an engineer. You know, I was learning how to make videos on the side while I was being an engineer. All these things I could do on the side. but I've learned over the past 3 months by stepping away from the operation how much I love it. So the thing is, though, the thing is that the world genuinely needs somebody who's going to tell the story of aviation, because nobody's doing it justice. Nobody has done aviation justice to the young people out there, to the next generation who loves this idea of aviation. There is no one out there who's really, well, there might be some people. I don't want to say there's nobody, because I'm sure I'm doing
We're
somebody
trying.
an
We're
injustice.
trying.
Somebody, yeah. But there aren't enough people. There aren't enough people who are genuinely working hard to share with these, millions of people around the world how amazing a career in the aviation industry is. And that is the niche that I really want to go down. Now, when I made the transition to kind of do that full time, I realized that I missed being in the career as well. So part of, I guess, where my vision is, I would love to have a foot in both camps, just because I genuinely, number one is the learning. Like, I like learning more about the airport, and you know this. The airport, the aviation industry is one of those things you can never know everything about. So until I know everything, I want to have a job in it, right?
Yeah.
I want to keep pulling that string. I want to keep learning about how things work, and that's part of the USP of my content. Is not that I was just some random guy on the side who was making content, but actually I was doing the doing and document me doing the doing. So part of the next phase of my journey is I want to keep doing the doing. And this is actually something I only came to about probably about 2 days ago. So, I don't know if you can really hold me accountable to it, because these are thoughts that are just crystallizing in my mind as we speak. But I think better when I speak anyway. So maybe this is where it all sort of clicks together, and I might use it as the opportunity for that. But I genuinely enjoy being in an environment where I'm learning and I'm piecing together problems and I'm solving them. I'm an engineer. I love trying to understand how we can make things better. And the way you learn how to make things better is you have to really embrace the thing and try and get your head around all the different perspectives of that thing, and then work backwards to click it all together. Now, I would love to document to the world that process of doing that. And yes, I don't need to be knee deep in every single part of the industry, but I want to at least have a corner where I can, I guess, claim it to be my own, within the industry. Yeah, what's next is, I guess, the fork in the road is something like this. I want to have a career as a content creator that runs alongside a career in aviation. I've realized that when I merged the two, it wasn't as fun. It wasn't as fun. When your job is to be a content creator, it's not as fun. You don't get to feel as part of the aviation industry as I once did, because you kind of feel like the cameraman on the side, just documenting it. You're not doing the doing. I love doing the doing. But man, I want to help. Ultimately, bottom line is, if we were to put it into a nutshell, I want to help brands. I want to help the aviation industry as a whole tell their story, and in a way that resonates with the world. Because I feel like brands in the aviation industry are struggling to attract talent and are struggling to tell their story in a way that really clicks and resonates. The world has changed. The world doesn't like flashy adverts anymore that are clean cut adverts. The world wants authentic, user generated content that feels real, content that you look at and you're like, I can relate to that person. So I want to help brands utilize my platform to get their message to the world and show what opportunities they have amongst their industry, within their industry, and share to the world that part of them. So I would love, that is kind of what I'm building on the side, and an opportunity for brands to show the world what they do through me. That's when I feel like I'll be the airport guy. But I want to keep learning about the airport, hence why the foot needs to stay within the operational environment.
That's amazing. I mean, so much harmony. I mean, it's very similar to what I'm trying to achieve in this space as well. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you're just sort of feeling your ego, right? Wanting to be on camera." I'm like, no. I've identified that there is a huge problem in the next generation of aviators and travel. I love the brand that I work for. Love it. It has given me the opportunity to travel the world through my father, through my brother, seen parts of the world, and I have a deep affinity to British Airways. I can say that out there. deep affinity, has a special place in my heart. Ticks me off sometimes, absolutely, but
As they all do, man.
deep
As they
affinity.
all do.
Local brand is given. My dad says it's fed you, and you grew up through it. It was the bread and butter. So I always want to do it justice, and it celebrated 100 years a couple of years ago. I want to see it around for 200. I want to make sure it lasts for that. So I want to be a part of that journey. And it may not be the case. I may move on to other places. Great. But that's the vision. But I always want the feed and the mechanism of great people coming in to work in this great place. Travel, whoever it is, whatever brand, it's infectious. So infectious. And then I only realized this line that I'm about to say because I worked on a marketing project with the large teams and stuff like that. And, you know, we were talking to agencies and I said, I want to ask them one question. They're pitching for our work. I want to ask them for one question. I said, yeah, okay, go ahead, Raza. Like, go and say it. I said, why do you want to work for an airline post-COVID? Like, is that going to be good business for you? Does that make sense? And I couldn't get a great answer back. They were like, oh, you know, really, it's a really great brand to work for and stuff like that. And then only up until said, well, why should we work with you? One person said it. And I think they were the winners in the end, but it wasn't because of that. But they said, why should we work with you? You tell us. I said, let me tell you why. And I've said this on the other podcast and people may clip it. And I hope you do. But I don't think you realize now how important travel and aviation is to the world. You might be Mohammed Tahir, the engineer, but your engineering mechanism and skill that's improving the plane or making sure the plane is catered for and getting to somewhere safely is allowing a parent to go visit their child graduating from MIT, Harvard, wherever in the world, and realizing a father or a mother's dreams that they didn't think they would have. They came from a humble background, put all their investment in their child, and they're watching them graduate and living their dream. You help deliver that by taking them from A to B. You're allowing someone to go grieve a parent, a partner, a brother, sister, wherever they are in the world. You're a part of that journey. You know, travel and aviation isn't just getting from someone to A to B. It's the emotional experience. You're an experience company. You're providing them a pleasant experience, delivering, possibly what is a traumatic experience, but you are in charge of so many emotions. And the only differentiator that an airline, other than travel, I'll speak airline specifically because that's where I can, is maybe the only place where you have a captive audience for a short amount of time where you can win them over and give them the best possible experience in life. You can change their emotion, their thinking in a 2, 3, 8 hour period because they're in a confined space. It plays such a big role in society. Think about businesses doing business. They fly over to the increased GDP, tourism, all that. Take travel away, that doesn't exist. And COVID would have brought that about of, damn, that doesn't exist. It's not just that tube that goes from A to B. It's the emotion, the business, everything that flies with it. It plays a huge importance in society that I think we've forgotten. When you zoom out and you say, hey, I'm a part of that, you sort of go with your chest out that, damn, I have a place in the world and that's where I'm contributing to. That's pretty cool. And I think we tend to forget that. So I will always say, remember that, zoom out and be like, yeah, I'm allowing someone to achieve an emotion here. Whether I'm just fixing a tire on the plane or allowing something on the runway to be fixed, I'm a part of a cog of a system or an ecosystem or a brother stroke sisterhood to deliver an emotional state and deliver them from going to A to B in the safest possible way so they can achieve what they want to achieve, carry out what they need to carry out.
Yeah.
You're in charge of so many stories and you don't even realize it. That's the most amazing thing.
They really are. And the beauty of that is these stories can be infinite.
Yeah.
Like think about, both of our parents probably when they came to this country. I don't know about your parents, but mine came by a plane and they landed at Heathrow Airport. Maybe your forefathers, who knows? But we are able to facilitate lives that change.
Yeah,
right,
100%. And same with mine. Yeah,
and that's the cool thing, man. We're able to literally facilitate lives changing, but you have to always bridge that connection because it can be so easy to forget. It can be so easy to get into the mundane, the day to day, and just kind of the hustle and bustle. For me, it's I go downstairs in Terminal 5 and I just stand at the arrivals hall.
People watch.
Just people watch, man. 5-10 minutes. just stand around and watch people greeting each other, hugs, kisses. It's amazing when you look and you go, wow, like this is what I'm part of. This is what I'm part of. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I like
it's
that.
something I agree. I agree. It's definitely yeah. When you step back, it sort of sends even goosebumps up me of like, God, what am I responsible for? And even if I'm just in a back office doing something, I play a part in that.
Mm.
Amazing. And there is another element I want to talk about, and it's a part of the side pieces that you do and the motivational speaking and things like that. It is something called Fantasy Wings that you're a part
Yeah.
of.
Yeah,
Tell
that's
us a
right.
bit more about that. It's new to me. It's only because I'm following you and I get the wings, but I would love to hear the details about that. Who are the type of people you're working with, the achievements that you've achieved? Because there's one really big one that's come about that may have closed by now, but yeah, it's definitely a good one.
So, Fantasy Wings is an amazing organization that was founded by a guy called Jackson Smith. Now, Jackson was part of the aviation industry, and he realized very quickly on, as I think we all have, that representation is an issue. Especially for young people who are from underrepresented backgrounds, there is no clear pathway into the industry. You might have an uncle or an aunt that sort of points you in that direction, but because there isn't that representation, it can be quite hard. You don't see the people in the cockpit, working on the ground, fixing the aircraft. You don't see people in air traffic control that look like you, whether you're from a minority background or whether you're a woman. You do not see these people that look like you. So what Fantasy Wings does, Fantasy Wings bridges the gap between these young people who are from underrepresented backgrounds and women to the industry, and it creates connections and it creates opportunities for these young people to not only learn about the industry but then have direct access pathways into the industry. So Fantasy Wings has partnered with British Airways, the Civil Aviation Authority, EasyJet, Virgin Atlantic, NATS, the Airline Pilot Club. There's a couple of others, the World Champion Air Races, so what previously would be known as Red Bull Air Racing, and a few other organizations in order to create opportunities for young people from diverse backgrounds. And what I do as part of Fantasy Wings is I actually facilitate their programs in London, Birmingham, and Manchester almost every single Saturday of the year for 10 months straight. So starting in October all the way to July, almost every single Saturday for 10 months straight, I'll be either in London, Birmingham, or Manchester with over, I don't know, 300, 400, 500 young people from diverse backgrounds between the ages of 13 to 25, where I teach them all about the aviation industry. And not just me, but I bring professionals from the industry, whether they're, for example, next week we have a girl called Alice who works for Virgin Atlantic. She is the A350 avionics specialist for all the systems on board an A350. She's a mixed race girl, grew up in London, right? So when a young girl in the crowd can look at Alice and see that she's the systems specialist for the A350 for Virgin Atlantic, what does that do for that girl? What does that do for her? She goes, oh my God, if she can do
Could
it,
be me.
she looks like me, she talks like me, she's from the same ends that I was from, that could be me. When they see a young Asian woman who's a first officer on one of the best airlines in the world, that it comes to the room to sit down and speak to them, what does that do to them? When they can see a black air traffic controller who comes down and speaks to them, right? You don't typically see these people,
Yeah.
right? You don't typically see people from our backgrounds doing amazing things in the industry. And if they are in the industry, they're kind of hidden. What Fancy Wings does is it gives a platform to show them to these young people. But it's not just about inspiration, it's about knowledge. It's about genuinely educating them about the industry and then creating the opportunities that they can plug directly into, which is why we do these partnerships with these brands. It's not just about a brand saying, oh yeah, we've partnered. It's like, no. What value are you going to give these young people?
Yeah.
And with that value comes opportunities to get PPLs. So we sponsor 3 young people each year. We give 3 PPL scholarships so they can get their private pilot's license completely paid for on the house with Fancy Wings. We give over 50 young people trial flights where they get a chance to actually experience the magic of flight for an hour in the sky. These sort of opportunities, man.
These are stuff that you would have dreamed of as a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I get to make those dreams come true for the next generation, and it fills me with joy.
It's
Every
amazing.
single week in, week out. up and down the country. I get to meet the future of this industry face to face and show them what's possible.
And look, and here's where we differ as a podcast, because I'm now going to ask you the pressing question of why, Mo? Like, you have your weekend, you have your job, you have your content that you're creating. Why? What is it in you? What is in your genetic build-up? What's pushing you to do that? You don't have to. Why?
I realize that God's given me something that if I don't use, it'll be a shame. I think every single one of us, God's given a gift that if we don't actually put to good use, we take it with us to the grave. And like genuinely, when I go to sleep each night and I'm knackered because I've had a full day at work and then I've been working flat out, doing X, Y, and Z. I have podcasts where I'm back to back to back, traveling from this place to this place, giving this talk, that talk, all the time. I go to sleep at night knowing that that gift that God gave me, I'm putting to good use. And I think that creates a life worth living. When you can recognize your gift, understand the problem in the world that means something to you, and then actually deliver and do something to move the needle in that space, that gives you purpose. It makes you feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself, right? That does something to me, man. Like I was that kid one day, like you said, I was that kid one day who would have dreamed about these opportunities. And just because nobody done it for me, I'm now in a privileged position where I get a chance to do that for a younger person. And not only am I in that position from a work perspective, but God's given me the ability to speak. He's given me the connections and the network. He's presented the door right in front of me. So all I have to do is open and go through, and I can change and impact the lives of hundreds and thousands of young people around the world by actually going through that door. What am I going to do? Just sit with my hands in my pocket? A lot of these opportunities have come through a lot of hard work. But now that they're in front of me, what am I going to do? Just sit around?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go through that door. And then when you go through that door, there's going to be another door. And another door, another door, another door, another door. But every single time you see that door, if you feel like it aligns and you're able to use your gifts and you're able to add value in the world, let's do it. Because then when that young person sees you doing it, what are they going to do when they grow up?
Replicate.
Exactly. And if we can do that for our generations that come, I can be in my grave knowing that I did my bit.
Yeah, I think there's a very famous line of be the change that you want to see in the world, right?
Yeah.
And this, people replicating what you do but amplifying it 10x is the dream that you can hope for. You inspiring one person to then go on. It's the butterfly effect, as it were. Yeah. Again, amazing. I commend you for doing what you're doing at such a young age. The great work that you're doing.
Such a young age, man. How old are you?
I'm 33.
Come on, man. I'm not too far. I'm only 27. We've only got like 5 years.
Keep talking like I'm really well established.
Man.
We're not. I mean, by all means, we hopefully have got so much to look forward to and to work with. And again, we will put the details of Fantasy Wings in the description. By all means, out there. If you are a brand or anything, most details will be at the bottom as well. Feel free to connect, and this is all we're about, and making those connections, because that's one of the most important things that we do. So we're going to come towards the end of our session soon, right? So one signatory thing I do, I don't know if you've seen, is it's a quick fire round.
Let's go. I've seen it.
Yeah, so it will start off with just one worders, and I just need to give your opinion on something.
I struggle with one worders.
And then
turn them into one sentences.
And then we'll go to sentences and we'll get your thoughts on some stuff. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I think I've pretty much covered all the questions that we were going to cover, but yeah. So let me know when you're ready and we'll fire away.
Always ready.
Okay. Airport.
Me. Is that weird?
Heathrow.
Home.
Engineering.
Problem solving. Sorry, it's two, but problem solving. Is that okay?
It's fine. Travel.
Life.
TikTok.
Change.
Social media.
Opportunity.
The future.
Can't wait.
Favorite aircraft type?
747.
Favorite airline brand?
I've never flown with them, but Virgin Atlantic for no reason at all, other than they seem cool. Listen, you don't even pay me to say this. Yeah?
Chicken or beef?
Chicken wings.
Oh, good luck getting that on a plane. Aisle or window?
Window. It's not a question, is it?
City break or beach break?
Silly.
Favorite book to read on a flight?
Anything that will teach me something.
Favorite hobby?
I don't have time.
There's one that people I've seen on your socials.
Running.
That's the one. There you go.
Well, that's the see for me. That's not even a hobby. That's like a task. Like, I need to do it.
Way of life, is it?
Yeah.
Are you a last minute boarder or an early lounger?
Bro, everything in my life is last minute. I can't lie.
One essential travel item that you can't go without.
Deodorant.
We've had headphones, we've had face cream, deodorant.
Come on, man. Are you gonna pick up the whole plane? I mean, for the people sat next to you, for their sake, take deodorant.
One thing that you would change about the travel industry?
I would allow more opportunities for young people to experience it.
One bit of travel advice that you would give anyone?
Don't think twice, just book it.
Favorite holiday destination?
You know what? Can I give two? Because they're two very different. Fine, I won't.
Let's go for it. No, we'll go for it.
Norway and Vietnam for two very different reasons. Culture and experience, Vietnam. Norway, like nature, like you've never seen before. And just peace, man. I just sit on hanging off the side of a cliff in Norway with my legs dangling with like 1,000-meter drop. Just take a deep breath. Can't beat that.
Common myth about engineering?
It's hard. It's not hard. You don't have to be smart either. You can just do it.
Advice that you would give to your younger self?
Believe in your source.
And one key learning that you've taken away in your journey and that in your growth journey so far?
One key learning. Do that for me?
We'll do it again. One key learning that you've taken away in your growth journey so far?
Other people matter more when you interact with them than you do.
Fantastic. That's all I've got for you. But yeah,
thank you, man.
Thank you so much for today. I know it's been a long time coming, but I am hoping that this is the first of many interactions, and we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
I'm always following on your journey. I'm wishing you all the best in the world.
You, thank you very much.
I'm always a phone call away, so by all means, reach out. Whatever you need. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And I'm sure there's hopefully a bunch of younger generation that will come and join this podcast and look at the different careers via the avenue you sort of create. And I want to just sort of take the time to sort of say, this is a very diverse industry, both, from people, but the roles that it can create, we kind of say that you can be a lot of things in this industry. You can be a doctor, you can be a venture capitalist, you could be a social media expert, you could be a content creator, you could be a pilot, you could be a stewardess. There are so many avenues, and we do need you. There are stories to be told. There are experiences to be delivered for so many people, and we definitely want you on that journey. So I hope this podcast has been of use to everyone. And Mo, thank you so much. And is there anything you want to end up and saying?
Just want to say thank you, man. Thank you to you for having me, and it's so inspiring to see you taking the step to actually make this happen. You've seen an issue in the world, an issue that you want to help tackle, and the fact that you've actually taken the initiative to say, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Congratulations, because not many people take that step from making a concept become a reality. And I have no doubt it's going to pay dividends upon dividends upon dividends for the years and years and years to come, bro. And I can't wait to see that journey flourish.
Amazing. Thank you. There's no better way of ending. So thank you so much. And God bless. Take care.